Beth Ann.
What's up? I'm Ayla.
This is Let's Talk BL, a Boys Love podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. It is Sunday Series Sunday, that one day a week when we talk all things one series and one series only. So if you have not seen this film, turn back now or prepare to be spoiled, or go ahead and be spoiled and then watch it, or just listen through and don't worry about it. There really are no other options there.
Yeah. We're talking Your Name Engraved Herein.
Highly requested.
Yes. I also was excited to talk about this at some point. This was a movie that I found a while ago, so I was excited when I found it and have suggested it to a lot of people.
And there's a lot to unpack here.
Yes.
I feel like this is going to be so much heavier than we normally go.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the nuts and bolts before we get to the fun part. So it came out in 2020. It's on Netflix. I remember when it was coming out because I think I saw a trailer for it on YouTube. My algorithm gave it to me and was really excited about it because I remember going to seek it out on Netflix when I watched it. Although I didn't realize it was a movie, not a series. So I started watching it and I was like, wait a second, this is lasting a lot longer than a normal episode.
Yeah, when I watched it, you were like, did you already watch the whole thing? And I was like, yeah, it's like a movie length. What do you mean?
I know. I was like, I don't know. And the interesting part about this movie is that it was kind of based on the director's own experience. There's an incredible Time article. We'll link it in the description because it is a beautiful article and it's so interesting. It adds kind of so much more to the viewing experience if you know a little bit of the history. At least for me, when I get to know a little bit about the actors or the directors who make this stuff, especially these more kind of historically true to life stuff, it's always, I feel like it just makes it a richer viewing experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Jia Han is played by Edward Chen, and Wang Po Ti, who is Birdie, is played by Sing Jing Hua. Y'all, we butchered these names, I know, but whatever.
Who's this we? I didn't read them. So, as per usual, we'll get started with a little synopsis. Here we go. In 1987, when the martial law period ended, two Christian high school students, Jia Han and Birdie, met at the school band led by a Canadian priest. One day, they were granted a day off to Taipei for the late president's funeral. The two took a chance to explore the city and theaters, finding themselves inspired by budding love and freedom.
Interesting.
That's an interesting piece of the story to focus on.
Such a tiny piece.
Yeah, because I guess let's go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't interpret the Taipei trip as the start of the feelings. The feelings were there already. No?
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
I don't know. I feel like it's interesting because we talked about a little bit about this today about whether or not it's a BL. I feel like their love is so secondary to so much else going on in this that I didn't even consider or think about kind of when their romance started, because I would almost argue that there's not a romance.
Right, there's not a romance. I mean the beginning of the feelings, right?
Right.
Did one side or the other or both already have feelings for each other when they went to Taipei? I think yes.
Maybe.
I think yes.
I think for sure Jia Han, for sure.
Right. So yeah, it's just an interesting synopsis focus, I think.
Because it definitely feels more like a coming of age story for Jia Han.
Oh, definitely.
It's definitely more about him and his experience and the complications of that first big love, which is this is such a beautifully told story, just all of it. And we love the
plot lines,
the plot line and the filmmaking of it all.
The filmmaking is beautiful. So it's set in 1987, so it's a period piece essentially at this point,
which is cool. We get a little pager action in there.
I know this is set in a time from before I was even born, which is cool. Love that.
Yeah, I was a year old.
But the filmmaking of it is really beautiful. Getting into, is this a BL or not?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk about it, but I I would love for people to put in the comments if you think it's a BL or not.
Yeah.
Because I truly don't think there's one right answer,
No.
to be honest with you. I know what I think.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think I'm right.
Yeah, I think everyone can kind of decide for themselves because, you know.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a BL.
Interesting.
I don't think this is a BL. And the reason why is because I look at BL as its own specific genre.
Mhm.
It's a very new genre, right?
Yeah.
It's only been around for 6-7-ish years, right, in total. And so,
Well, it came out in the 90s,
but
historically.
but BL as a television genre, right? Not the origins, not the mangas, not the web novels, not the webtoons, not any of that.
Specifically the shows.
Right, the television and movie
Right.
media of it all, right? The genre, right? The television and movie media genre of it all
Mhm.
is only 6 or 7 years old. So
Right.
it's still being written. It's still sort of like evolving and like getting its legs and becoming the thing that it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so with that, I think that it has become I think it wasn't always its own genre, but it is now.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's this living, breathing thing.
Totally.
And so I really see BL as its own genre with its own tropes and formulas and, you know, like media science and all of those things behind it. And I don't think that Your Name Engraved Herein is a part of the BL genre. And I like, and I know when we were talking about it, the way I always explain it is not all love stories are rom-coms,
Right.
but all rom-coms are love stories, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel about BL, where not all queer media gay storylines are BL, but all BL are queer storylines, right?
Interesting.
But you know, not all love stories are rom-coms. Rom-com is its own very, very defined
Specific,
genre,
yeah.
and that's how I see BL, is its own very, very defined genre. I would identify this specifically as queer media, personally.
Interesting, yeah.
Personally, and again, I'm not saying I'm right.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think I would take a different view where to make I would kind of say you could almost use these interchangeably, where BL can kind of be anything involving, I think it's more specifically like boy and boy love, right? Like that's the joke that we make. Like there was an idol that was like, it's a boy and boy love. I think that's kind of where you get, because somebody made a really great review of this movie, and somebody was like, is this a BL? And they likened it and said it has a BL romance. Like there is a specific part of it, but yeah, it doesn't, the whole movie itself is more of like self-discovery and talking more towards the societal aspect of it, and like it's set in a school, and like there's kind of more to it than just like the romance between these two boys. And so yeah, I think it is an ever-growing, ever-changing genre, and when you have that, I think everybody defines it differently. I don't know if you're going to get a synopsis.
Yeah, well, and I don't think everybody's going to agree about whether or not this is a BL or not a BL. It's
an interesting conversation to have around it.
It's super interesting, and I think that BL, like that whole conversation, is a really interesting conversation to have. That I don't know that we'll ever have on Let's Talk BL, because we tend to lean more like fun, and this is like and let's explore the fun side
as
of
we
this.
talk about Your Name Engraved
right
Herein,
I know. And then we start talking about Your Name Engraved
I will
Herein.
say, like,
I actually thought this was a fun watch, though. Everyone warned me. Everyone was like, this is really going to get you in the feels. It's so emotional. Like, you're going to be devastated. I honestly thought so. I was expecting someone to die because,
interesting,
because of what people were telling me about this.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, this isn't a sad ending.
No.
I'm not sad. And I cry about everything. Like literally just yesterday, I was crying about some cute boy's smile. Truly, I like started crying.
Yeah.
So I cry about everything. And this wasn't sad to me. Like it was a beautiful, interesting, fascinating, moving story.
Right.
But it wasn't sad. There were sad moments.
Yeah.
But it wasn't overall, I feel like, a sad movie.
I feel like it ends it with hope. Right?
It's not a sad ending.
Yeah, it's like a hopeful ending.
Yeah.
So let's start, I guess, with like the two main characters. So you have Jia Han and Birdie, who are two very, very different characters. You have Birdie, who is this like fun, happy-go-lucky kind of.
He's a weirdo, right? He's described by everyone else as like, you can't. There's a line that they're like, you can't trust people named Birdie. They're all weirdos.
And so he's such an interesting character because I remember watching this and being like, oh, he's the character that's going to be okay with being gay, and he's not.
Yes,
It's
I
the
felt
opposite.
the same way. I watched it, and as I was watching through it, I was like, oh, like he's gay. I was like, and people know it. Like I just assumed.
Yeah.
Because again, like I watch all of this BL, and I was like, and based on the way that he did things and the things
like the very
and
first
what
scene
he stands up for.
Yeah, the very first scene is him standing up for that kid being bullied and like takes him away, and they're like, if you associate with him, like it obviously means you're gay. And he just like walks away from it.
And I was like, oh, so like he's gay, like he's cool with it, and then he's very not cool. Well, although okay, debatable as to whether or not it's his fault that he's not cool with the relationship and how that all happened. Debatable. Like, would he, because I think maybe he gets an unfair rap for being this like self-deprecate, like self-hating.
I don't know, because he marries
his girlfriend from that he meets at school. Yeah,
has a kid, and she has this moment where she's talking to Jia Han, and she's like, I came to figure out that like loving boys is innate, and that like being gay is innate, and like he couldn't have fought that, and like he finally had to accept himself. And I think like because he eventually moves to Canada, and Jia Han is like, I never expected to see you in a place like this. Like I was surprised by it. And because I think it's like a gay bar.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's because there's so much like kind of fun and fancy free to his character. You're a little confused by like, has he come to terms with like who he is? You think he has, but then that scene where he's confronting Jia Han with the parents, where he's like,
who has no balls now.
Yeah, he feels like it feels like he's trying to out him.
Right. Oh, he is.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what he's trying to do.
And so it's a wild moment of like, he keeps you on your toes. Like you have no idea, because when they have that final moment on the beach, kind of at the end of their like togetherness, you find out that like, oh, they completely separated.
Yeah, when that voiceover came on, and he just starts talking, and he goes,
and this is
I thought this time. Yeah, well, he goes, I thought this, we were at the end of the world together, and we were talking, and he told me he was going to take the college entrance exam.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I ever saw him.
Yes.
And that was a sad moment. I'm not even sad, but like shocking, because they had made so much progress that I just wasn't expecting it, but it was so real.
Yeah.
Because they're graduating high school. They had a very, very rough start, and particularly Birdie, because again, I think that in an alternate universe, an AU different storyline, had that shower scene not taken place, and like the course of natural like relationship evolution happened, maybe his acceptance of himself and his feelings and of Jia Han would have been different, right? I think that Jia Han did that to him very much,
totally,
in a very not okay way. Like let's not get confused. Like that was not okay,
right? Yeah,
at all, even a little bit.
Right, because he was forcing him. Jia Han was forcing Birdie to do quite a few things. First, he was trying to push his feelings onto Birdie. He was trying to make Birdie accept who Jia Han thought he was. Like there were so many layers to that whole interaction. I remember being so just like overwhelmed with like anger in that scene, where I was like, no, this isn't how you start a relationship.
I was so upset at that
scene.
And I think I got even more upset as the storyline moved along, where afterwards, and so admittedly, and we sort of got into a similar debate last night about two characters from
You're My Sky.
You're My Sky. It
Shout
always
out.
comes back to You're My Sky.
Totally.
About Dome and V, because so
They're
is it confusing for Jia Han? I'm not likening them, but like
they're using another person to like figure out
themselves.
Totally.
And is it confused? So in that moment, Jia Han's the villain, right?
Yeah.
To use a term, right?
Yeah.
Jia Han is the villain, but in that same moment, Birdie kisses him after.
Yeah.
Right? And so is that probably confusing to Jia Han? Yes.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure that's probably confusing, but that doesn't discount what he did and how he did it.
Right.
And so I was so upset with that scene, but I think I was more upset as the plotline carried on when Jia Han was like trying to carry on as though nothing had happened, right? He tried to eat lunch with him and he tried to like hang out with him.
Right.
And Birdie was like no, right? He was essentially running away from like his assaulter.
Yeah.
And Jia Han couldn't figure out why and was mad at Birdie for him reacting that way, but he was sexually assaulted. Like, let's not mince words here. Like, that's what happened. And so his reaction to that and his reaction to Jia Han and his like the way that he handled things going forward from there, I feel like was the best case scenario for him.
Yeah. Because even when they have that moment, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, even when they have that moment towards the beach, is it Jia Han running away,
right,
and Birdie chasing him?
Yeah.
So they constantly play this cat and mouse game. So if you really think about it, it makes no sense for them to end up together, because even flash forward to the adults, they have that moment where they're standing in the entryway to the hotel, and he's like, do you want to come up for drinks? And he's like, no. Because I think he knows that like this relationship started in a very toxic way, and it would they'd have to go through a lot of therapy to resolve any issue.
I mean, especially because again, like you can't discount for 1 second, like that is his assaulter.
Yeah.
And I mean, regardless of how much personal growth he's had, imagine like how traumatic that would be, even for him as an adult, what, like 30, 40 years later?
Yeah.
So I again, in an alternate universe, had that one particular, like 2.5, 3 minute scene not happened,
right,
this could have been a very, very different story.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's,
I will give it to Jia Han. It's interesting because you have that cruising scene, which I didn't realize until kind of after the fact that that's what it was, where Jia Han was like, I go to the park and I feed the birds, and like occasionally old men make an appearance. And you have that moment between Jia Han and the old man where he gets mad and he's like, I'm not like you, and like runs away. It's like that's what he's been taught, because early days, that's a lot of what it included. And he was taught like that's how you kind of force that interaction with someone that you're like attracted to. And so, you know, a little bit of the argument is like he didn't know any better, but to say like you obviously don't interact with people that way, he needed to learn that like this person, even if there was some type of attraction or affection, like you forced yourself on him, and that's just not going to work for a relationship. And he does it time and time again, where like that scene in the church where Birdie is like, we're best friends, and Jia Han's like, you really think that's all we are? And it's like, yes, because that's all you guys have. Like, you kissed him when he was sleeping, you know, like,
oh yeah, okay. You know what, maybe this is a BL, because again, like for me, the term BL is defined by the tropes that come along with the genre.
Yeah.
And the night kissing and the night caressing, and
we've leveled up lately with the night kissing.
Yes, it used to just be sleep caressing, which I've hated since the first time I saw it. And now, yes, everyone's kissing a boy while he's asleep. No, he's not consenting to your kiss, FYI. Like, if he's unconscious, he can't consent.
Yeah.
I hate the night kissing and the night caressing, and that's such a common BL trope.
So common.
It's
very, yeah.
Do we have any of those in Your My Sky? Just side note.
You know what I was thinking? It was funny because I was like, we got some night caressing, but it was appropriate night caressing because it was caressing at night between Tutfa and Torn.
Oh, between like awake, but two fully awake.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah, yeah.
happened at night.
Nobody was sleeping.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
problem I have is like when one half is
It's
sleeping.
So maybe
Yeah.
go with sleep caressing.
Sleep caressing.
Yeah,
Yeah. No
sleep
sleep touching.
No sleep touching.
No sleep contact. Like physical contact while one person is asleep.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, that's become a big trope lately. I feel like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Come on, guys.
I mean, we do have that one coming out that's like Yoon's.
Well, Frank's new thing. Lord have mercy.
Oh, well, I just mean Yoon's involves like a lot of consent, which is like really
it does.
awesome.
Yeah. Maybe I wonder if it's gonna go full 50 Shades of Grey and be written.
There's like
consent.
a contract.
Yes.
Anyways, Your Name Engraved Herein.
I feel like Series Sunday has just gotten to the point where it's like we have a show, but really we're just talking random stuff.
We're like at this point, we're like, how can we relate it back to Your Mind's Guy?
We talk all the series on Sunday.
All the series on Sunday.
Because honestly, like you said, this movie is like it's a heavy topic matter. Like it deals with society. Another thing that I learned from that Time article that I thought was incredible is that when they go to Taipei, they see that protester who said his sign says like homosexuality is not a disease, and that was like an homage to an actual activist that worked for 30 years for gay rights in Taiwan.
Yeah, that's super
and
cool.
I just like that kind of stuff is so wild and interesting to me because they recreated his actual, like he had like a full costume like made out of condoms, and that was actually what he had in real life, so they just like recreated it for the show. And stuff like that I think is just like, again, because we talk about how much we love the culture and just like that kind of stuff, to see that in another context, in another culture, like it informs so much of the viewing experience.
Yeah, that's super cool. Another really cool moment that's not as like deep. Chris Wu is in this.
Yes.
The original Gang Daddy.
So good. He plays Jia Han's brother.
Yes.
And the mom from Beloved in House is Jia Han's mom.
And she has a great overall just kind of like, not really storyline, but all of her moments I think are really powerful and cool and interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like the one where they've stayed the night at his house and she goes in to move the fan in the morning and like, she just kind of looks at them and they're like, I mean, they're both asleep, but their legs are just kind of like intertwined in the night.
And one of them is laying on the other's arm.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those moments where she like, she looks at them and you think, oh, she knows. You're like, she knows. Yeah. Oh, she knows. But she doesn't.
She doesn't want to
know. Yeah.
What that happened in another Thai drama recently, where it's like it's like, you know, the parents want for the kid to tell them more so than them to find out, I think. And so it makes it more complicated. But yeah, she definitely toes the line of like supportive parent, but like very traditional.
Right, but don't talk about it, right? Yeah. I don't hate you, but we're not going to talk about it.
Right, because when we do have that almost like forced coming out scene with Jia Han where he's like, what if I told you I don't want the girl? Like, I'll tell you what I like.
Yeah, well, no, he says, it's Birdie that says, what if he never gets a girlfriend? So that's his moment of like forcing him to come out. And he's like, well, what if he never gets a girlfriend? Right. Because the parents think they fought because
of the girl.
Jia Han tried to steal Birdie's girlfriend. And he's like, that's not what happened. And the parents are like, you can date when you go to college, like no dating in high school. And Birdie says, what if he never gets a girlfriend? What if he doesn't get a girlfriend in college? And previously when they fought, Jia Han had like made a comment to Birdie about like him being a coward, basically about what had happened to Birdie, not between them, but to Birdie.
Totally.
And so that's the moment where Birdie says, you know, and Jia Han is like, he kind of freaks out and he's like, shut up. This is none of your business. Like, don't talk about this. You know, this is my home. And that's when Birdie has his moment where he's like, who's the coward now? I think the actual translated line is like, who has no balls now?
Yeah.
And the mom is kind of like, she tries to diffuse the situation. She also has another conversation with him that's really cool. After Jia Han and his dad get into a fight. And he's like, why? And he asks, which I think like pretty much every angsty teenager has asked their parent the same question when they've gotten mad at the other parent, which is like, why'd you even marry him? And he asks her that, and she kind of is like, and he's like, do you even love him? Right? Because he's really trying to work out love. And we see this in the scenes with the father.
Right.
Like the Catholic
The
father.
priest.
Yeah, the priest. We see this in these moments where Jia Han is really trying to work out this like concept of like love and sex and sexuality and how it all ties together, and why the love of it is it, so he's not going to go to hell, basically, right? Like he's really trying to work through this, and he's really, really focused on the love part.
Yeah.
And so, which is what makes that shower scene so much worse.
Yeah.
But she's basically like, she says this line that's like really sad, and I think makes Jia Han sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think is what ultimately makes him a little bit jaded and turns him into the person that he is in those years. Because she says love at our age. And it's like, it's really sad to hear that. And she basically says, you know, like, we met and we got married. It's what you do. And she never says, of course I love your father, you know, whatever. And he kind of stomps off. He like storms away, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that like when she said that line, she was like, love at our age. I mean, I was like, that's so sad. Imagine this kid who's a teenager. He's in 11th grade. He's not even a senior yet.
Yeah.
Is being confronted in his own heart and mind with like, what does this mean? I'm in love with my best friend who is a boy.
Yeah.
And what does this mean? And like, he's also concerned about his soul
at
that point.
Right.
And and so there's so many different layers that he's trying to unpeel. And he knows that love is good because that's something that we're taught, like in the Christian church, like love is good.
Yeah.
So he knows that love is good, but he has been taught that homosexuality is the sin.
Right.
And you know, and we see this in a conversation that he has with the priest, where the priest tells him, like, we need to keep ourselves in check and we can't cause other people to go to hell.
Right.
And so he's also wrestling with that in his mind, that he's been taught that like his actions could send his best friend who he loves to hell, which is like heavy stuff. And so he's really grappling all of this. He's grappling with all of this and really trying to figure it out. And he's like 16, 17 years old. And then to hear that even as a grown-up, you can't find the love. I mean, that's gotta, like, I mean, I can see how it would break him.
Yeah. I also wonder if it made him think like, oh, I have no choice in this. And that's just, I have to accept my fate, which he doesn't. I don't feel like we don't get a backstory of those 30 years in between like him graduating and being an adult.
No.
You get a little more of Birdie's because, you know, he got married and he had a kid.
And we see a couple of times where Jia Han and Birdie have talked on the phone.
Yeah.
But they never see each other. And you don't really know what Jia Han has done. And he shows up at the reunion and it's implied that like he's doing well.
Right. The other interesting part is the kid who's like fully accepted being gay. He's such an interesting character because like he's fully himself, which is such a contrast to Birdie and Jia Han, where he plays kind of the like middle ground between the two, right? Where it's like, here's this boy, and when Jia Han talks to him in the hallway, like after he's been beaten up again, and he's like, have you ever considered going to a doctor? Because like Jia Han still feels that like the being gay is wrong. And so, and the kid is like, he like grabs him by the neck and looks at him in the eyes. And in that moment, I feel like maybe Jia Han thought like, oh, this boy is going to like force some physical affection because that's what he knows.
And he does come on to him because he like brushes his hair out of it. Like it's a very seductive way that this boy, like he does like this and like there's like
he grabs him
caressing,
and he's like he continues to talk to him and he's like, there's nothing wrong with this, it's who I am, and it's not going to change.
It's not going to change.
I'm not going to force this on you. And like he's like, it is who I am, and he like walks away. And in that moment, I almost feel like that added to Jia Han's thought of like, if I can show Birdie that that's who he is too, like I won't be in this alone. And it's just, there's so many layers to this movie. Like watching it multiple times, there are some hard moments to get through, but it is time and time again, because that reviewer too was like, there's some things that are disjointed and there's so much depth and meaning to so many conversations that like you almost have to watch it multiple times to, like,
I feel like you have to. I still feel like there's so much that I missed or that I don't see the real connection or know the real connection. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in this one.
I also did more research on just like the history of Taiwan and like all that kind of stuff, because that stuff again informs the time frame and informs like what's going on with people's mind, because you have that military guy who comes into the school and is like, why do you have the boys and girls sitting together, and like what the band is obviously the
band is the root of all evil, guys.
It's so interesting. Just
my favorite line is when he yells, he's like screaming, and he literally yells, he's like, teenage boys going through puberty are horny. And it's just like, I mean, the fact that this military bro is just like screaming this in a hallway, it is hilarious to me, because he's trying to like force this morality, but he's screaming the word horny in a hallway full of kids.
Yeah, it's this movie is so good. I just like enjoyed every aspect of it. And because you get that time jump, you get some good kind of wrap ups to a few of the questions that you have. So like you kind of get an answer to like where Birdie and Jia Han are, and the fact that they reconnect, but in a very kind of safe way, and in a hopeful way that you're like, hopefully they can maybe become friends, like they can have this resolution, because there's no implied romance between them. And it just shows like, I love the fact that they end it with like them as young boys, like kind of walking off in a very friendly manner into the sunset kind of thing, where it's like,
it was such a nice ending.
It was such a nice
ending.
I
really liked the ending, and I loved the way they did the like cinematically. I loved the way that they did the flashbacks once they were adults.
Yeah.
Because once they were adults, we do get some flashback moments of like phone calls and things like that.
Yeah.
And I like cinematically, the way it's done is really, really beautiful. And I'm a sucker for this, like the beautiful, the cinematic, the all of that stuff. Like I love it.
Yeah.
And they do it really well.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of the filmmaking, like just aesthetically, the beauty of like the lighting and the like way that it's filmed is so, it's just beautiful to watch.
You know what? A lot of it reminds me of the way that Innocent is filmed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of similarities in the filmmaking, which like Innocent is another, is a Taiwanese drama. It's a short series.
Right.
But I feel like the filmmaking is very similar, and I think it's really cool. And it feels, with Your Name Engraved Herein, it feels vintage, but in like an elevated way.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, because Innocent kind of could feel a little retro.
Yeah, Innocent is super retro. Innocent is so cool. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I'm obsessed with the filmmaking on Innocent.
Yeah, go watch that series Sunday and the interview with them.
And then watch Innocent.
Because Soul Chill's about to do another thing, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
A lot of those, and I wonder if it's just like the way that they film these shows a lot of times feels very like simplistic.
Right.
And so it's just, there's more clarity where there's not a ton of side characters.
Like, it doesn't look like they use a lot of external light sources. It's a lot of natural lighting. Yeah. It's a lot of like long shots, but then like the clipping together is very like you can tell they're not mixing shots.
Right.
It's very sort of like one shot style in a lot of senses. I mean, it's incredible to watch. And this is one thing that I'm so excited for in BL, although again, I don't really know that this is BL, but in general is like the quality of the filmmaking and the cinematography of it all. Because when I came into BL, it like you had Itse, and that was it. If you wanted the like the beauty, if you wanted to watch something that felt just like rich, like really richly developed, not like money rich, but like warm and rich and really well filmed and really well made.
Right.
Like you had Itse, and that was kind of it. Like you didn't really have a lot. Even the like all of the stuff out of Taiwan was made really well, but not made really richly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now you've got Itse. I promise you the moon follows that same, you know, the Itse vibe.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Right.
Innocent, beautiful filmmaking.
Right.
And then like the only is You're My Sky. I mean, gorgeous with, and there's color theory in that. And like if you love the color theory in Itse, there's color theory in You're My Sky even. And then
we'll never stop talking about Your My Sky.
Never.
It just has everything you could ever want.
Moonlight Chicken. I'm really excited to see what they do with Moonlight Chicken, because I think that Piaf tried to do some of this like really nice, beautiful filmmaking Bad Buddy, but he had to stick to that GMMTV formula.
Yeah.
Because you see glimpses of it. You see glimpses
because it was a rom-com.
Cool, right. And you see glimpses of the like cool, gritty like really rich filmmaking stuff. And you're like, ooh. And so I really wonder, because another one that got close to that, as close as you can get in Thailand outside of Itse and You're My Sky, was Thousand Stars.
Yeah.
And so I'm so curious to see what's going to happen with Moonlight Chicken in terms of the filmmaking of it all.
Yeah. You have that a little in Cutie Pie right now too, where they do a mixture of what feels like a very traditional Thai drama, but it does have like that filter on the like, you know, scene where it's like a little softer, and it's a mixture of stuff because I feel like the darker shows, right? Like the cinematically darker shows. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It lends itself more to that, where like these like brighter, kind of happier shows, it's hard to put that on there. And so to have something that like mixes the two is interesting.
Summer Days.
Yeah.
Summer Days is really bright.
Right.
Even throughout the like the sad, heavy part.
True.
And the filmmaking on Summer Days, oh my God. Or Summer Days, the short film. Summer Days, the series, actually looks to me like it's going to be a little more, I mean, really, it's still super, super well made.
Totally.
But it looks like it's going to be like a little more like traditional Western teen drama style filming, which is going to be fantastic. I'm super excited.
Right.
I can't wait for Summer Days, the series. But Summer Days, the short film,
Yep.
super bright, right? The whole time.
Right.
And they still have that kind of filmmaking to it.
Yeah.
We love to see it. To borrow a phrase, we love to see it.
Yeah. It's so fun to just see in such a short amount of time how everyone has kind of leveled up. They know that, like, you know, we've talked about this before too, and it lends itself to the whole conversation about like what is BL, that like you can't pander to audiences like you used to. Like it's not just about the cute boys. You can't just
make two boys kiss and think it's going to be a thing.
Truly. And I love being able to like look at the landscape now and see where it was, you know, when I got into it like a year and a half ago now, I guess, or almost like a year and a half ago, not quite 2 years, to see kind of where we've come to. It's so fun to just like look back upon my BL journey and to see the like landscape, which is why it's fun to do these series Sundays, looking at older shows versus newer shows and kind of be able to say like, oh, this is where we started. This is why these shows add value to this conversation. But also we now have a different standard, and like we can appreciate these older shows, but also expect more from like the newer shows. Yeah.
So this was fantastic. Love it.
We have merch. You knew it was coming.
I like that that's the transition now. We do have merch. shop.letstalkbl.com. I don't think there's less stuff out of stock now than there was.
Nice.
I'm not going to promise that everything's in stock, but there is less stuff out of stock than there was last time we talked.
Yes. Please comment on what series Sundays you want to hear and see.
And also comment and tell us, do you think Your Name Engraved Herein is a BL?
It's a BL.
Because I think there are so many different right answers.
For sure. Are there any other announcements that we can make? Stay tuned to Wednesday because
Wednesday will be a fun music episode.
yes.
It'll be super fun. And then, of course, the next Wednesday, stay tuned for Tulpacon. Another heavy fun.
Oh, yeah.
The good news is thank you to everybody who commented and gave their opinions and voted on the polls. Nothing was cut outside of techno. We always make technical cuts.
Yeah.
So it comes in at an hour and 37 minutes. You will get so much of Tool talking about BL and advice and life
The
and
father of BL.
being Tool. And it's an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
So I really hope everybody loves it.
So don't forget to subscribe, and
don't forget to subscribe, follow, and keep up with
There you
all
go.
things Let's Talk BL at Let's Talk BL.
See you next time.